county could look at what those impacts would be. So for the fire district, for example, they're 0.8511 of ad valorem. And so if ad valorem went up, using those same numbers, $100 million, they would get 85 cents per thousand of that 100 million. I think that comes to 85,000 or something. We could then look at the other PILT funds from the enterprise zone or something like that outside of what the agency's doing and make sure that they still get that 85,000 or whatever. So there's sort of this net zero. But really what this does is it guarantees that those, perhaps those school district funds could stay and those county funds could stay. As we looked at the enterprise zone, and as we talked about before, the county just has not shown any interest in guaranteeing that the funds generated in the city stay in the city, and they're looking to, I understand what they're doing. They're trying to serve the whole area, but this would guarantee that those funds could stay here, could address light as we've defined it here. So streets, utilities, parks, while also that other funds as they come on with the payment in lieu of taxes would be able to send those funds back out. So there hopefully could be close to a net zero. We still need to do all that math, but that's sort of the idea, some turtle shell shuffling around to make sure that here Umatilla is not impacted. Now, the ones that are going to be impacted the most, candidly, would be Umatilla County in that scenario, because they're roughly the same as us. They're just under $3 per thousand of assessed value. We have to go present to the county, they would, depending on what you all wanted to do with enterprise zone funds or anything like that, we could set something back to them, or not. The school district funds we would all keep here, but I would say that would probably be a different negotiation of how can we support capital improvement projects, whatever it is they might need. Yeah.
We're seeing 8% inflation right now.
Yeah.
How are they making wages?
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. So right now, we can figure out the sort of back end finance on the enterprise zone stuff later throughout this summer and throughout the end of the year and maybe into the spring of next year, depending on how long that takes. But the idea would be that this could, so all along the way, as we've talked about enterprise zones, we've talked about this, depending on which number you're looking at, 120, $150 million worth of infrastructure. This sort of gives us the opportunity. We can take on indebtedness now. We can pay those funds through the Urban Renewal Agency. That unlocks, that frees up a lot of these other general fund dollars, making it a lot more, I guess, palatable to be able to continue to distribute those funds so that we can not only meet the inflation that's coming to not only the fire district, but I'm sure all the others are seeing the same, anywhere from 8 to 15% inflation plus whatever their ad valorem would be in general. So we could kind of figure those things out and look at other things too that might be valuable to invest in. Yeah, you bet. So that's the very high level of this, and we'll have a map for you, but it's relatively similar to what you saw in February. It's mostly citywide. Again, 25% of the acreage, but it looks like it's in the entire city, but it's really not. It's street, not necessarily a lot of parcels, because that's where all the infrastructure is.
So this question more for Elaine. Elaine, is this anything that's out of the ordinary? Is this pretty standard?
Elaine, did you hear the question?
I can't. If you could repeat it, that would be great.
So the question from the mayor was, is what we're proposing here, is this out of the ordinary? Does this seem kind of standard?
The whole urban renewal area or forming the agency now?
Is this something that like cities are commonly doing across the state, or
is this something that cities are doing across the state, or is this relatively unique, just the urban renewal agency idea in general?
Okay, I'll address two parts of that. So in terms of establishing an urban renewal area, when an enterprise zone property is going to expire, so I think that's one part of that conversation. I have worked with other cities who have done that, and they, again, are similar to you. They're cities that don't have a lot of other resources to be able to provide that infrastructure or those community assets any other way than being able to use those funds that are garnered through the urban renewal. So you are certainly not the first one to do this. There are other districts that have. And in terms of forming an agency now, and if this wasn't your specific question, I wanted to address it anyway, so unfortunately I'll give you my input on that. To form an agency, you have to adopt a non-emergency ordinance. And that takes 2 readings and it's not effective for 30 days after that. So whether or not you decide to adopt the urban renewal plan in the future, it's good to go ahead and establish the agency so that if you indeed want to adopt the plan, you may do that within the time frame that we talked about, which is having that adopted prior to the end of this calendar year. If you decide not to go ahead and adopt the urban renewal plan, that agency can just stay within your city code through that enactment ordinance and be dormant, or you can rescind the ordinance that adopted the agency. So there's nothing that is negative to you for adopting or forming the agency now. It just is one of those steps in the process that is required to actually be able to adopt the urban renewal plan in the time frame we're looking at.
Bruce, you got a question?
Thank you. So is there a typical length of time that a urban renewal area is set? Are urban renewal areas set up for specific time lengths, or are they set up for meeting certain goals? You know, as far as the area coming to an end.
May I answer that?
Yes, please.
Sure. So there is no requirement in the statute to set a time limit on urban renewal. The limitation in the statute is on maximum indebtedness. And maximum indebtedness is the total amount of money you're allowed to spend within that urban renewal area over its lifetime. When we return to you with our feasibility study, we've been looking at a 30-year time period, and that is just for what we're looking at. That can always be changed at your direction. A 30-year time period is pretty consistent around the state. And again, that is not a requirement. So the area doesn't end then. If you gain or reach your maximum indebtedness earlier, it ends earlier. If you reach your maximum indebtedness later, it ends later. So it really depends on establishing that number, and we have to establish that number within the plan that gets adopted, what that maximum indebtedness will be. And again, we'll bring you some numbers on the feasibility study, and you can at that time provide your input of, well, we aren't going to need that much. We could shorten the time frame, or we could just shorten the amount, and know that when we get to that amount, then all of this gets released to the other taxing districts. So it usually depends on what projects you want to do, what the cost of those projects are, how much money you can potentially get out of the urban renewal area, and about what amount of time you will need to be able to get that money.
And then I guess I have a follow-up question on that. So my concern is if we're doing this for 30 years, we'll run out of
Could you read?
So the question, Elaine, was if we do this for 30 years, the enterprise zone funds will go away prior to the enterprise zone abatements periods will expire prior to the loans expiring in 30 years. So the short version is yes. However, it's again, that's what we're looking at would be the city would the urban renewal area would still receive the same 2.9191 in our permanent tax rate, but it goes to the urban renewal agency instead of to the city for those enterprise zones. And then it would be particularly the county just under $3, and then the school districts just under $5. Those main ones that are there that stay to the urban renewal agency. The other funds would from the enterprise zone abatement program. We can always, if we needed to, we can always amend the boundaries and take certain properties out of the urban renewal agency at the time. And so one of the things that happens, and we'll show you this as a little bit later on, I don't know if we'll get to this tonight, Elaine, or maybe we'll do it when we present it next time, is that when the PDX 63, for example, when the enterprise zone expires, its very first year, just on the way that the statute is written on how the funds would flow, the Urban Renewal Agency would receive something in the ballpark of about $27 million that very first year. And then each year thereafter would be somewhere around 10 million, give or take $500,000 or something like that. The maximum, we will hit the maximum indebtedness that the program allows, which is somewhere in the ballpark of about 50 million in each zone. And so once we've collected the 50 million, we'd have to change the boundaries or make some amendment to that, is my understanding with that, Elaine. And so there, most likely we would be able to collect those funds, put it towards the indebtedness, and then re-change the boundaries of the zone to do it again with PDX 130 or 121 or 194 or something. Does that sound accurate, Elaine?
Yes, but when you're saying change the boundary, what will? There's two options there. One is to close down the existing urban renewal area that's reached its maximum indebtedness and then form a new one in the future to capture one of those other properties. To be able to change a boundary, there are limitations. So you can never add more than 20% of your existing boundary area. So whether or not you could remove one of your existing, large value properties and bring in another one will depend upon whether you can do it within that statutory acreage limitation. But you certainly could close down one urban renewal area and start up a new one.
So we'd have to do that analysis of whether the 20% change was better or to just form a whole new area.
Right.
So that's what we're proposing, maybe 2 areas, and each area has its own maximum indebtedness. And that's why I know it's very preliminary. I haven't provided you any of the data on this yet, but we'll get there. That's why we're proposing 2 areas, is because it actually allows for larger indebtedness to be able to maximize those data.
So it's 25 acres.
Correct.
Yeah, we also don't have all of the data centers included in the URD, and so I think your concern is if enterprise zone payments run out, we don't have enough to make the other districts whole, and that won't be the case because we have other data centers that aren't.
Okay,
in part of
yeah,
it.
that's exactly my point. So I
Yeah.
want to make sure that we're not leaving the hospital district in the lurch because they have loans to pay against everyone else.
Yeah, and we recognize that what we're proposing is a little bit unique, but not necessarily, like Lynn said, there's others that have done similar things where they have enterprise zones throughout the state. But the idea here would be that those data centers that would have otherwise been outside of their abatement program has expired, and that the districts would receive whatever their allotment would be during that time. What I'm already proposing now to this council, and I think there's a lot of head nods around the table, which is no matter what, that dollar amount needs to go out to the other districts so that there isn't a loss there. And then we can talk about some of the other impacts that are out there, inflationary rates, specific projects or stuff like that, that might be worth adding to the value of that as well. And that's a lot of work to do, and we'll get there. But the idea here with the urban renewal area is to be able to have these funds so it eliminates the financial burden of the infrastructure that is absolutely, we're staring down the barrel of here in the next 7 to 15 years. And then be able to then reappropriate enterprise zone funds separate of this, but as a full 360 view of the revenue streaming into the city.
So I was doing some perusing. It looks like there's a lot of communities that are starting to do this. And it's not just in Oregon. From what I see, there's a lot of smaller municipalities like us that are jumping on board with this. Right. It's crazy. I always thought this was urban, so I thought it was more for Portland, Beaverton, that area. This is great because we can do it now and look at the future. We can actually hedge ourselves, basically. That's what it looks like to me, right?
It is, and I know she won't do it, so I'll do it for her, but just, so Elaine does pretty much all urban renewal districts, both in Oregon and Washington. Her and her team are by far the resident experts in the 2 states. We're very happy that she accepted to work with us on this project. When we brought this to you in February, late summer of last year, or I guess it was the fall LOC meeting, the city of Hermiston co-presented at LOC on this topic, and And so, we were in, I was in that training, and then I got the ear of Mark, and then he passed along Elaine's information, and then we brought it to you in February, and here we are here. So, Hermiston, is by far, I mean, they're the largest city in Eastern Oregon. They're leading the way on this side of the state. But this is, as you said, Councilor Duffel, this is a little bit more common along sort of the I-5 corridor.
Right.
But the east side of the state, I think, is picking up on this quite a bit.
Yep, Pendleton has an area, LeGrand has an area, Hermiston has a couple. Boardman has a couple. The Dalles has an area, Hood River has a couple, so.
I was even like Prineville, there's a lot. I mean,
Well, Prineville looked and decided not to proceed.
really?
Yes,
Huh.
they
Interesting.
had opposition from their fire district.
Oh, okay. I wonder why. It's weird. Yeah.
I was gonna say, might have been bad timing.
Might have been bad.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot. What other questions might you have on this? And we will bring this for you. I know you have a lot on your agenda on July the 15th. That's your Rock the Locks decision-making night, but we will, you should be able to have this information available for you for review on the 3rd. We could either bring it to you on the 15th or your follow-up meeting on August the 5th. I will say I can give you sort of the calendar of events to have this done by December 1st, and we only have about a 2-week sort of cushion in there if that's something we want to do. And as Elaine said, we still have time to act on the urban renewal areas. We can create the agency and then not adopt any areas, at least we can get it into the code now, and if we need a little bit more time, that's fine, but we wanted to try to make sure we can move
So
that
when
way.
we talk about it on August 5th, whatever birthday of August is, pass it on the same day. Or does it have to be separate? You mentioned 2 meetings.
It has to be, 2 meetings, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll go to August 5th. David, I know that's a big part time, can you email us documentation? This is kind of like, not necessarily a meeting, but can you still keep us apprised of what, here's some data numbers, something for you guys to look back onto before August?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Mayor. So that was kind of what I wanted to ask. So this is like everything else that's sort of happening in real time, and there's quite a bit of adjustments that are changing here and there. What I don't want to do is sort of bog you down in the minutia, and then you kind of get an idea of one specific thing, and then that changed, and you don't necessarily have the background of it. So we'd like to kind of keep you updated on this progress, but at the same time, I also want to keep it in a public forum this way, so it's kind of discussed. In the meantime, as we mentioned, between now and either the end of summer or the very early fall, I'll try to do what I can to get on each of the taxing districts' agenda while we're working to get this, the agency. What I'm hoping we can do is get the agency adopted by end of summer, and then we need to get the urban renewal areas adopted no later than December 1st. So if we create the agency, there's sort of no risk to create it. And as we mentioned, you can always it can be dormant and retired if you need to.
It has to be the same.
So, because it takes 30 days for it to go into effect, and so the ad valorem goes into effect changes on January 1. And so you're right, and so, yeah, so if we miss that date, it drops us a whole nother year.
So we have a busy July 8th, 22nd.
July 15th is busy,
Oh,
and
July
then you have your joint. So the idea would be you have your joint planning commission meeting to talk about your buildable lands inventory and your economic opportunity analysis on July 22nd. We can add this item to that joint session as well for further discussion on July 22nd. And that would be a great public opportunity to have that further discussion.
Yeah.
I could sort of make the rounds on the informal right now with other boards between now and then. It's not a lot of time, but it can be informal. We can have sort of bullet point talking points. And then we could bring it to you more formally in regular council meeting at your August 5th meeting. We could do something like that.
I think that kind of works. Council, do you have further questions or reviews? Okay. Elaine, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We really appreciate your assistance and help. I don't know if you can hear me or not. I really appreciate your assistance and help this afternoon. Elaine, thank you very much for your work and effort.
So I need, if that was to me, I need that repeated. I couldn't hear it.
We were just telling you, thank you very much for all your
Oh,
assistance. And leading us
thank
on
you.
this. I can hear it on the
I
microphone.
can hear it in here.
All right, moving on now to 5.2, setting the city council goals. Any further discussion?
So Elaine, you're welcome to stay if you'd like, but we're moving on to the next item on our agenda. Otherwise, we'll just say goodbye to you for tonight, and we'll see you next
Great.
time.
Great, thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you.
Let me just pull up your goals that are on the website.
Here we go, audio, video.
So we didn't bring any changes, updates, proposals. Have each of your goals are on your city council website. You have each goals in as main link, and then when you click on the link, it'll take you down to the each of the sub points or the objectives as well. So I don't know which process you wanted to go through this council and if how you wanted to do it. So we just open this up.
Sounds good. Is this microphone louder? Can everyone hear me better? Yeah. Is it better?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
better.
Yeah. So I just walked over, grabbed my other one, so I don't know.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we're all, it's so funny because I just went through these 2 weeks ago or whatever. Because somebody was asking me about, where do you see Umatilla in 5, 10, 15 years or whatever. And I specifically said, you need to go to our website and look at our goals. And if you have something else that you want to see other than that, let me know. And they were impressed how we kind of thought of a lot of things. It's a pretty broad perspective if you look at it.
I guess I have some questions too, like objective 1.5. I was reading through some of these. What are we actually doing to prevent some of these things? Like, I feel like objective 1.5 was in opposition of us ensuring that we could have alcohol sold at the golf course. Like, why do we have that in there? And can we change it to something more poignant, to something that's actually in our interest? Because like 1.5 is preventing substance abuse, reducing alcoholism, and reducing obesity. I feel like we're why would we be selling alcohol if that's one of our objectives?
Well, I mean, we can do this all day long. We can say, we can't rent hotel rooms because there may be infidelity and cheating on wives. So, I mean, you can go as far as you want.
I know, but it's an objective.
And I understand that, but.
I don't think we have a
Sitting-
clause that says we
but
can't have
marijuana-
infidelity.
okay, so marijuana use, should we not?
No, but my point
It's
is
the state
that
law.
I get that. I'm not against it. I'm saying,
You think it's hypocritical?
right.
It's not.
Yeah. So
Because to me, that means that we don't, just because somebody drinks alcohol doesn't mean they have alcohol problems.
Totally agreed.
So how does that have anything to do with that? That's kind of where I'm getting at.
Total 100%. What I'm saying is, how are we promoting that? What are we doing?
yeah, so if I could interject a little bit here. So certainly there's a lot of intersectionality of a lot of these objectives where there's crossover and they support each other. And there are going to be some of these objectives, not only in each category 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that may seem a bit counterintuitive. So what 1.5 does is by having it as an adopted goal, it really makes us eligible for state or federal programs that might be part of cessation and things like that as an adopted goal. It also makes us eligible. For example, we have our PATH program, and as their one of the leading causes of homelessness can often be attributed to substance abuse and things like that. And so by having these kinds of things adopted in our goals, it just makes us eligible for some of these. If we have something like this not available, then it's a little bit more difficult for us to to be able to go after grant and federal funding.
I was just curious. And Darren, like, I 100% agree with what you're saying, Darren.
But-
I just want to make sure that we're just having a clear
Yeah, I mean,
guideline on like what,
And I understand what you're saying, but in the same sense, we're we're working with our partners to prevent or to help education in that manner.
right. So
That's
my,
kinda where I'm
exactly,
going.
agreed. I'm just making sure, like, how are we actually performing
Sure.
that? How are we as a
Well,
council
like-
performing that?
Yeah, no, I
And
get
I
it.
agree. I fully agree with what you're saying. I just want to make sure we're
No.
not being counterintuitive.
Yeah, I got you.
So if you're following along, you can just go up to government, and then on the left side under city council, you have council goals.
Yep.
And that'll take you to this page.
Dave, do you have any, like, we talked about this earlier, but is there any proposed goals that you want to change currently right now? 'Cause
Yeah,
I feel like
so-
we're pretty happy with most of these.
Yeah, so if council likes, we can spend as much or as little time on this tonight as you'd like, but in general, I think, so when we went from 21 to 23, when we adopted these, we added, this is anecdotal, but we added about maybe 7 or 8 new objectives and took away like 3 or 4. It wasn't a lot. It wasn't a major overhaul. The goals that you have adopted have served us pretty well to this point. To me, if council would like, I have no problem bringing this back as a discussion item at your July, what is that, first meeting? And as just a quick item there where we can make some of the same sort of ideas that I don't know what I would take away yet, Mayor, but I do think as far as additions, particularly under Goal 5, perform at the highest levels of operational excellence, we're having issues with these microphones tonight. We're definitely having issues in our council chambers with technology and stuff like, we need to address that. And so we should definitely set a goal towards that. That's been mentioned by many of you, by many of the members of the community. We definitely need to look at sort of some of those very basic interactions. So some of the things on technology, advancements, improvements, how it interacts with us should be there. This came up in earlier meetings. You know, the city doesn't have a citywide adopted communication formal policy. That should be under highest levels of operational excellence. We should be able to point to a policy that says, this is what our strategies is, this is what we're doing, those kinds of things like that. So
Same thing we talk about with complaint procedure, like, just like, where is it? Like,
Right,
try to find it,
exactly.
Try to locate.
That's
we need
exactly
to simplify
right.
that.
Yeah, and so there's a couple, I think those are kind of low-hanging fruit objectives that can go into this category 5 of higher levels of operational excellence should definitely be there. The other ones that we have in here, and 4 kind of hits on that too. So as we're working on enterprise zone, urban renewal areas, things like that, we need to get a goal in there or 2, an objective that specifically talks about some of that 360 view.
Can you go to 4? Is there anything in 1 or 2 that is pressing for anyone on this council? So I feel like most of those are pretty good.
Yeah, so 1 or 2 is going to talk about maintaining public safety levels, no reductions to the police department. Always at least keeping it at its levels as we grow, and then talking about investing in those quality of life improvements. So that's going to be transportation improvements, parks amenities, things like that. That's pretty much goal 1. There's a lot of things in there. 2 again goes on economic development. We have a handful of goals about data centers. I would think that we might want to talk about that more. We've been for the last 5 years, at least very. I don't want to say aggressive, but we've very much pushed for data centers. Are we still interested at that sort of level of push? We've been able to diversify that economic portfolio, some of that derivative markets. We've brought in the air filter people, we've brought in the garage folks, we've brought in digital surveillance folks, and regular security companies are here. So all of those things have come along with it. So that's probably worth a bit more further discussion. Goal 4 on public involvement, increased transparency. I think this we can go through this if we'd like, and we can talk about it a little further. We only have, I believe, it's just the 7 objectives there. Yeah.
So I'm looking at these, and I read these yesterday and last night. I feel like 1 through 2 need some work, and then I feel like 3, 4 we did. We did a quarterly published newsletter, and then we hosted a town hall, at least 1.
Yep.
I like that as a constant goal for both of those to stay.
This can go into like our communication strategy.
Exactly. I think that
adopted.
goes in our communication plan. I think we keep those.
Yep.
My concern is like we have invested in utilizing communication software, like webinar technology. However, it's still, for the most part, like what I just experienced with this microphone, it's still unusable. She couldn't hear me until I switched microphones. Like, okay, no big deal, but like I had to get up and walk around and do that. I feel like that needs to be a higher priority goal. Like, I don't know if that stays on 4 or we move that to its own section of like technology improvements, like a goal 6 that says technology improvements for council chambers or something else. Cause I feel like this is getting to a level of frustration, not just with myself,
Well,
but with.
I don't
community
know if
members.
that's a council goal. That's an objective that we need to meet. That's no different than a chuck hole in it.
You mean it could be an objective either under 4 or 5, wherever it makes sense, rather than its own
Okay.
category?
To me,
Okay.
it
To me, I mean, we're splitting hairs a little bit as
Right.
far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned. I think it could be in either category.
Okay. I just think it would just be its own separate goal of increased technology, but if we want to keep it as an objective, fine.
But I think we don't need to get it down to the finite of making sure the IT and everything works in the chambers, and just make sure that our electronics are up to date and where they're supposed to be. It's a 10,000-foot level, how I see it. And then everything else breaks down to it's under that umbrella, just fix it.
Right.
Yeah, to me, it's actually it's both. It's the creation of having. So every time we give you an agenda bill, we always mark which goal does this hit, and that's intentional. So that because if we can't put one in there, why are we doing it? Like if it's not one of our goals, why are we having this discussion? Why are we appropriating resources? Why are we taking all of our time? And so it doesn't make business sense, right? So we need to create that objective. We can point, and we all, the agenda bill doesn't do the objective, it just does the goal level, but we can create the goal level. And then if we adopt, for example, a communication master plan and strategy, that could be one of those objectives. And then the two of them combined sort of achieve that same thing.
I think maybe we each add in there having a communication portfolio or objective master plan like you just put, but I still think it's really important that we push the fact that we need to make the council chambers better. We
Yep.
need to fix this technology issue. And I know Nancy's been working really hard at it and trying like doing everything she can. Get it. We just need to make sure that it's on an agenda item.
Yeah, we have
We actually have some voted.
Hermiston IT in here ripping the place apart, all the things.
Yeah.
So
No, I saw her,
but-
what was it last
yeah,
week
yeah.
ago, 3 weeks ago, where
Yeah.
they're working on stuff. Like I get it. I think it's just also important that we make it a priority and like this council acts upon that and actually votes on it and makes an actual conscious effort to fix this issue.
Yeah, and you have in your proposed budget technology upgrades. It's not a full overhaul, but it has some funds available for council chambers.
Any other questions on 4, everybody? Are we still processing?
So I don't know if it, well, in reading through it, it seems it would fit in goal 4. And I mean, I mentioned it at the last public meeting. I mean, I guess I'd like to, gauge everybody's interest in, specifically looking at increased voter turnout, increased engagement in voting. And I don't know whether people are ready to, think that on as a specific objective for
No,
us.
I completely agree.
I
think that
agree.
Definitely needs to be, when we have 400 and less than 500 people show up for a vote, that's ridiculous.
What, this is kind of a weird question. Can we do that? Like as elected officials, we can do a vote campaign, but like how do we?
And it's
How do
not
we
for
do that?
one specific thing. It's just
Right.
get out and vote.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
saying,
so
"Hey,
you-
vote for me or vote for this.
Right.
Just make it a priority that you vote.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so we can do a public outreach, if you want to call it that, sort of the civic education, the importance of
I think we
voting,
should
sort
buy
of
that
thing.
billboard and have Dave say, get out the vote. And like, we need you to vote and have a picture. I think it would work.
Yeah, and well, and
Oh, there you go. Get a whole semi truck with his face on the side. I'm down.
Objective 5.2. At least twice a year offering training to elected officials. We need to make that, mandatory. I think we really need to invest in our elected officials and really try and push that to where we get some more education.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back. We just need to make that an agenda item, actually vote on it. We have to have action. These are our goals, right? But staff can't give us our goals. We have to
Right.
make action on it.
No,
So-
I completely agree.
So if that's something you want, send me an email and let's make it a discussion item on the agenda. Me and Dave, and we can sit down and make that happen. If that's something you really want, it's already in here. Let's do it.
yeah, and that's as you guys you're working through your council policies right now. To me, that seems to be the most appropriate place for something like that to be. So you can have this here as your goal, and you could have in your policy that first half of the year there's at least a training. Second half of the year, right now this is April and October. That seems too specific because you did your retreat this year in February instead of April, and so let's just give ourselves first half, second half, and then but now you have OGEC has their required is that annual or every other year, Nancy? Every term. So every term, mandatory training. And so we have a couple of those sort of starting to sprinkle their way in there, I suppose. So
5.5 seems similar to 4 point. Can you go back to 4 real quick?
you bet.
5.5 and thanks, Dave. Where is it? 4.2 seems similar to me. So 4.2 and 5.5. Create and continue to increase on-demand information and self-serve information. Can we combine those to be one objective?
4.2 and 5.5.
That's basically
Yeah.
the same thing.
Same thing, twice, yeah.
Yeah, so for example, and I can kind of point to this a little bit more. So we have, so our agenda building software, iCompass, it has a document center where everything that we have loaded in there is in, so you can click on any agenda item and you can pull item there. But that document center can be made available as a searchable field on the website. We just haven't turned on that module and activated it yet. It has contract management, so all contracts of the city could go into that, and those are all public documents. With few exceptions, there could be some redactions in some, but the 99% of all that can be out there. And so those are modules that the city currently owns, but we have not yet implemented. And so it would take some implementation. We have to get with the vendor to do an implementation strategy, but those are things that we could roll out.
I think that would
Okay.
be smart. Do you want to make that a separate goal, or is that can just be a part of that same goal?
Yeah, so we can look at, if it's okay, I mean, I'll look at 4.2 and 5.5 and redraft that as a single. And if we need to sub a couple of these objectives, have like a 4.3.1 or something, if we need to do that, we will, but I can get you a proposal together.
Subsection A. Okay. thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Okay. Can we go back to 5 now?
you bet.
Thanks, Dave. Okay. Twice a year.
There's our,
I feel like 5.7 is part of our communication effort conversation already. I think we can take that one out of ours and put that in the communication plan.
yeah, so I would agree with that very much, that instead of these so the objectives are right, are supposed to be the drill down of the higher level goal, but some of these, if we're going to have this creative, a communication master strategy plan or something, that's sort of a drill down thing that we would adopt as part of that plan of one of however many strategies we have available in there. So 5.7 could be combined or even perhaps even removed, but combined with the communication policy.
So I'm confused too on 5.8, receive the Government Financial Officers Association Distinguished Budget Award. How is that a council goal versus a staff goal? Like, shouldn't that be a Melissa goal, or is this something that we're all helping Melissa do?
No, it's absolutely yours. So
Okay.
the budget is, in its very nature, the budget is a policy document. And so if you don't have budget authority, we can't do really anything. And so we didn't receive the GFOA budget award until 2019, I think was our first year, 2020 for sure.
If I remember right, our thinking was that we want to be at highest level as we can. We want to make sure that our standard is so high that we should be 100%.
I guess what are the qualifications for this award? I guess I don't understand.
Yeah, so we can go through, Melissa can talk on that a little bit more too, but it's rather robust.
Yeah, there's several different categories that we get scored on or have mandatory or optional criteria. The budget message, your guys' council goals and strategic policies. So all of our long-term master plans are included in our budget document. That's a mandatory requirement. So if you guys don't update your goals, I'm not getting a budget, or we're not getting a budget award for that year. The optional goal, optional criteria right now is long-term financial planning. So a 3 to 5 year forecast. Right now it's optional and we haven't done it just because of staff capacity, but that's one that we're looking towards expanding and doing more of a 3 or 5 year outlook through the budget process. Certainly the brunt of the work to get the budget award is in our department, but I can't do it if I don't have the council adopting policies and updating policies.
I think it just sets a precedence for us and everybody to meet that criteria.
Hate
thought
to
that
throw,
was the
hate to throw out a request for a little bit more work, but maybe, maybe something that would be nice would be like a white sheet on what we do as a city council that impacts the GFOA.
Exactly. That's kind of my perspective. Is like, how do we have a direct, I mean, we pass, the new goals and we give you a budget, but we aren't necessarily writing line by line the budget.
Well, by adopting this goal, then that means that's the standard that we are developing our budget document to meet. And so it has, like I said, information, messaging, graphics, future planning. It's quite long on that list. 241 cities in Oregon, if I recall right, about 15, it ranges between 15 and 20% each year receive the award. It's not a lot, so it's I don't think it's ever been more than 50 cities in the cities or in the state. So it's to me it's a good goal. It's relatively lofty, but it's certainly not a requirement, but it's one that we've been
I
aiming
mean,
for.
the council participation is through strategic planning, goal setting, long-term master plan adoption, and just adoption of the annual budget. Beyond that, the rest of the work is really on staff.
Council, any further questions on goals or as we have it right now?
No.
Okay. So I guess Dave, make those changes, bring it back to us. Kind of the vibe I'm getting.
So yep, I have the notes there. If it's all right with you, Mayor and Council, if you have an opportunity, if you're reading through this, if you sort of have a fleeting thought, it's fine to go ahead and sort of send that. I could put that into the updated proposal. I can put a little asterisk on it that said that this came from a thought, a question, a recommendation from council member. It wasn't necessarily staff review, so we can highlight that as we go on with that. But we'll bring.
And did I'm sorry, I forget her name. Was she,
Elaine Howard,
not Elaine,
McRae Carmichael.
Thank you. Is she here to speak about goals as well, or is she separate?
She's just here as our community development director and
Oh, that's
helping us with our planning and stuff like that if we need
perfect.
anything.
Does she have anything that she wants to add to that statement at all?
And McRae, do you need anything that you'd like to add for your experience with goal setting going through what we're doing here?
No, just listening in. I think you all are having a good conversation. I appreciate the conversation about your tech because actually I have had a hard time hearing you a little bit. And I'm like, oh, there are little modifications and we see this with some of our cities. But I think goal setting as referenced is a good, like I appreciated Dave saying that with anything that he brings forward, he demonstrates in his goals where and how it relates back because why are you doing anything? Always tying it back to what you all are discussing. And I like that you're, it seems like on an annual basis visiting. I see the one online's 23, 25, but it's just important. I think being under 5 goals is good and having a short-term plan. So thank you for just letting me sit in and listen.
Thank you. All right, council, any further discussions on this point? Staff, anything else you'd like to add?
I mean, we have pizza coming at 4:30 in case you guys wanted to stick around, but you certainly don't. I don't, but that's okay.
I don't think
We wanted to make, we didn't, if you hit the 2-hour mark and you were not nourished, we didn't want grouchy planning. So we wanted to make sure that we had nutrition.
I'm
covered.
always grouchy, Dave. Also, I had to send you over an LOC thing about pizza, about food. I think did you see that? It was a thing in the mayor's chat, so I wasn't sure. Like, there's a
Yeah, we're good. So we made our changes to. Well, I can talk about it more, but we made our changes to our employee handbook as a considered compensation, and your guys' policies as they exist now adopt those as there, and so it's considered as part of official
Perfect.
compensation.
I saw the email and I was like, you've got to be kidding.
Yeah, we had it's yep.
Okay,
We cleaned that up when we updated our employee handbook, whatever that was 2 months ago.
Awesome. All right. At this time, council, we're looking for a motion to adjourn. Thank you for your motion. Can we get a second to the motion, please?
I'd second that motion.
Thank you. Can we get a roll call?
Aye. Aye.
So I do have a question. So even if, what if we keep meeting those goals? Do we ever, can we change the goals?